Hi, today I will be presenting to you the 1994 case of Liebeck versus McDonald's. McDonald's was founded by brothers Dick and Mac McDonald in 1940. They originally founded their first restaurant in San Bernardino, California, and it was originally called McDonald's Barbecue. In 1948, they took a risk by streamlining their operations and introducing the Speedy Service System featuring 15-cent hamburgers. The Speedy Service System is now what's known as fast food. In 1955, a former milkshake mixing machine distributor named Ray Kroc approached the brothers and asked to purchase and offered them to purchase a franchise. He opened the first franchise in Illinois. McDonald's then continued to grow in the United States as well as internationally. Today, they are the leading global food service retailer with over 36,000 restaurants in over 100 nations. During the time of the case, revenue was up 10% from the previous year, and net profit had increased of 11%. Income per common share was up 14% from the previous year. In February of 1992, 79-year-old Stella Liebeck was in a passenger car when her and her son drove through the McDonald's in Albuquerque and purchased a cup of coffee. After receiving their coffee, her son drove off and stopped for a moment, allowing her to put sugar and cream in her coffee while she was holding it between her legs. When Mrs. Liebeck removed the top from her coffee, it spilled all over her legs, and her sweatpants she was wearing absorbed the heat of the coffee and caused severe burns. Her injuries caused an 8-day hospital stay and a wide range of skin grafting. The surgeons had determined 6% of her body had full thickness burns. According to tort law, which provides remedies for acts that cause physical injury or that interfere with physical security and freedom of movement. When the case first was brought up, the jurors were skeptical because of her own negligence of drinking hot coffee in a car and having it between her legs. However, she was not driving and the car was not moving. Evidence proved the McDonald's kept their coffee 30 to 40 degrees hotter than coffee served by other companies. And 700 other people were also suffered burns, including children. They did not change their policy after they were known of these injuries, and they kept their coffee between 180 and 190 degrees, which was required by their policy. A home coffee pot keeps coffee between 135 degrees and 150, and other restaurants serve their coffee at 160 degrees. Experts argued that 160 degrees would allow 20 seconds for the customer to respond before injuries were caused or severe burns. McDonald's argued that their arguments were insignificant they argued that the amount of burns was insignificant compared to the billions of cups of coffee they sold. However, their quality assurance manager testified that their coffee was not fit for consumption at the temperature that they sold it. The business owners carry a responsibility for the safety of customers. Tort of negligence occurs when someone suffers injury because of another's failure to live up to a required duty of care. As a corporation, they are required to sell products that are safe for consumption. Their product liability is when product defects cause injury or property damage to consumers. McDonald's was fully liable for keeping their coffee at such a high temperature. The trial lasted a total of 7 days. McDonald's argued that any coffee over 130 degrees can cause burns and said that Mrs. Liebeck was liable because she was holding the cup of coffee in her lap, and also because she was older and her skin was thinner and easier to burn than, say, a younger person. However, the doctor testified that 160 degrees would allow time to react before such severe burns occurred. Mrs. Liebeck was awarded $200,000 in compensatory damages, which were reduced to 160 because she was found 20% liable, which comparative negligence statutes claim that if you're 50% or more considered at fault, then the defendant doesn't owe you anything. However, this was not the case, and she was only 20% liable. She was awarded $2.7 million in punitive damages, which were reduced to $480,000. Punitive damages are appropriate when defendant's conduct was particularly outrageous or shameful. Because of the temperature that McDonald's required their coffee to be served at, this was considered outrageous and shameful. This case cost McDonald's 2 days of revenue from their coffee sales. And 2 days of the amount of revenue from coffee sales, which they could have done away with if they were to change their policy and not serve their coffee at such a high temperature that caused these severe damages, or warn their consumers about how hot a coffee cup actually was. Even with their quality assurance managers testifying, they still claimed she was liable for holding the cup of coffee, and everyone knows the coffee is hot. That's not the case when you're serving it at such a high temperature. The public also did not agree with this case and said Mrs. Liebeck was just trying to make money off a large corporation. The lawmakers used it as an effort to advance tort reform agenda that limits consumers' ability to hold wrongdoers accountable. Liebeck was not concerned about the money. She was more concerned about the amount of people that were injured, including young children, and McDonald's still did nothing to change their policy or make their products safer. Liebeck versus McDonald's represents the importance of product safety and corporation responsibility in consumer protection law. Even though this case is often misrepresented as a baseless lawsuit, the case argues that McDonald's had prior knowledge of the excessive risk posed by serving coffee at dangerously high temperatures and continues to influence public perceptions of tort law and remains a pivotal example of how courts create equilibrium between consumer safety and corporate practices. I fully agree with the outcome of this case and how liable McDonald's was for not doing anything about the damages that they caused to their consumers. Thank you.